So this week, I have yet another Canadian leader joining me. This time, somebody who I admire and I've had the pleasure of working with a fair bit on and off. So today's guest is Ozge Yeloglu. She is the Vice President for Advanced Analytics and AI, or CAI, at CIBC, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. And I was snooping on your LinkedIn looking at your background. So prior to CIBC, Ozge was the National AI Lead at Microsoft for their Customer Success Unit division from 2016 to 2019. And here's something that I learned about you that I didn't know, that you actually are a startup person like me. So you had a startup called Top Log from 2013 onwards, apparently. So we'll talk about that and a lot more things. So with all of that, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Mona, and always a pleasure having a chat with you.
Thank you. You're too kind. Okay, so listen, let's dive right in. What does it take to run the advanced analytics and AI division for a large Canadian enterprise, some that's weaved into everybody's life and fabric? Tell me a little bit about the path that led to your role, and what does a VP of advanced analytics and AI at CIBC do?
Well, my path is interesting, but I find when we get to talk to each other, all of our paths are interesting, right? It's rarely a straight line taking you to where you are. Most of us are just zigzagging around and finding our paths. So mine is very much like that, right? Like funny enough, the first job offer that I got out of undergrad, I did my computer engineering in Turkey. And before moving to Canada for my grad degree, I was debating, do I get a job? Do I go for a grad degree? I did get a job as an offer from a Turkish bank at the time.
Wow.
But but I never thought I would ever work at a bank. I was like, "Whoa, what would I do at a bank?" Right? But no, my stories, I have very much followed the technical path, right? I've been in AI my whole life, basically. I did computer engineering, and the last year of my engineering degree, I got introduced to machine learning, that 1970s good old neural networks Bible, let's put it that way. When I started reading that book, I was like, "Whoa, this makes so much sense." And it just made sense, right? And that's why I wanted to continue a graduate degree, and that's how I moved to Canada. I got my master's degree um, in computer science, focusing on machine learning. I continued a PhD degree, but then I realized I got too deep into it. And it's those moments like nobody cares about what you do other than yourself and your supervisor. And even after a few years, you lose your supervisor too because you got too deep. So I was like, this is not working out for me. Like I can't do it. But
Yeah.
that's when basically that startup that you realized on my LinkedIn came up. I was still a grad student, and one of my lab mates from the same lab that I was part of, he was graduating, and he had a great thesis project that he had, and I was like, "You got to take this out to market, man." I was like, "You have to do this," and I was like, "Oh, it's not a one man's job." I was like, "I'll help you. How hard can it be?" I think part of my journey is
Famous
very
last
much.
words. Famous last words. Anytime
Yeah.
we say how hard can it be, we don't realize, but we're signing up for a basically live submission,
Yep.
right?
Yep. But you know what? I think I just owe many of my life decisions, especially in professional life. It's like I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. And that's usually my attitude. I'll figure it out. And like that was an amazing experience. We did that close to 4 years, and I never went back to my PhD degree to get my diploma. So I never got that, but I'm no regrets. Honestly, no regrets because I have got the experience of how to do research, right? So I would like to say I know how to do research. I'm just never certified for it. And the startup experience is amazing because I was in that case I was the CEO of the company, so I've done a lot of things, a lot of things. Like I've built the UI. What do I know about building UIs? Like I got to raise money from VCs and angels. I got to do marketing, like all kinds of things that I would never do as a PhD in computer science. So that was a great experience. Obviously, we didn't become $1 billion unicorn, but that's okay. I
Yeah.
was one of the 90% of the population in that case. But that gave me great opportunities from a network perspective too, right? Like that's how I got introduced to Microsoft, and then got in the Microsoft as their first data scientist in Canada. Um, and it was right timing, right moment. Working with very big clients within Canada, and again, right timing, right moment. I was able to become their national AI leader for Canada in 3.5 years, right? So it was a great accelerated journey. Um, and CIBC was one of my clients, right? And we had a great relationship. We were just looking into, and this was good 7 years ago, I would say. We were just looking for the first Databricks cluster on Azure at the time. I was on the other side, and anyway, it was very innovative again at the time.
20 years ago, it
Um,
absolutely was. Yes.
yeah, and they were looking for a VP, and they approached, um, and I said yes because it was one of those moments. This was pre-COVID. Um, I did not want to leave Canada, and let's put it that way. And growing in a technology company, being a subsidy in Canada, you just have to become a sales leader if you want to stay in Canada. And I didn't want to do that. So that was a great opportunity. Banking. I mean, I thought I knew banking because they were my clients. But once you get inside, it's a much different environment,
Ball game altogether. Yeah.
which gives you a whole another level of appreciation, right? The business that's run. Like I guess my first learning and shock was this is not one business. This is like 10 different businesses under one business. And you have to learn it all to understand it all. What does retail client mean? Commercial, corporate, business banking, capital markets. They're very much different businesses. And to be able to serve to those businesses, you have to get to know and understand the businesses. So yeah, I mean, I've started CIBC about 6 years ago, and what I have been doing also has shifted and changed a lot, which we can also dig into it as well. But yeah, it was not a linear journey, I guess. Let's put it that way.
So you didn't plan for, hey, one day I'm going to run the AI division at a large corporation somewhere.
No, I kind of avoided it like 20 years ago. I was like, no, what am I going to do in the bank?
Yeah, life's a full circle, and here you are.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your current role. For the VP for Advanced Analytics and AI at CIBC. So just tell us a little bit more about how does a large organization approach deployment of AI at scale?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, look, there's always the oh, we're a highly regulated industry perspective, right? But my approach has always we started thinking about AI governance maybe 4 years ago, I'll say.
Wow.
And
Okay.
we didn't have that terminology. I did not call it AI governance because governance has been interpreted or had a bad reaction, let's put it that way, because of that concept of oh, we're a highly regulated industry, so it's being used as a stick most of the times. And it's hard to get engagement through that, right? But how we started thinking through that is very much trusted AI and trustworthy AI approach, right? And my point was like, yes, we are a highly regulated industry, but to your point, what you're saying is we have clients that trust us with their data, information, money, in many words, with their lives in in some cases, right? Or
Absolutely.
what do you call it? Anyway, but so to me, that is really a big responsibility, right? Um, so put aside the regulations. I really believe doing the right thing when we're building AI and building it the right way. And the right way means, yes, the right way for our business, but right way is for our clients and stakeholders and shareholders and everyone that we serve to as well, right? And that's why we started thinking about, okay, what that might look like and how do we make sure that governance is integrated into how we build AI and it's not an afterthought. Because most of the times governance is very much an afterthought than designed by approach, right? So we've heard these concepts, privacy by design, security by design, like governance by design. That's what we also started to coin within CIBC, saying that AI governance governed AI by design, right? And how do we do that? And there are multiple aspects to it. One, um, we have to start with a framework, right? And framework being as um, we we had to discuss a few months on definition of AI, right? Because if we can't even define something, then you can't put a framework around it, right?
Yep.
So we really took our time, and we say we started thinking about this 4 years ago. Those are the type of the things that we started actually putting through. What is AI for CIBC? How are we going to define it? And then after that, what are the key pillars for us? When we say trustworthy AI, what does it mean? And we had to again align on the 6 pillars that we have from the trustworthy AI perspective. And then we said, okay, this is it. And then putting around the target operating model. Who is doing what? Who is responsible of doing what? And who is capable of doing what? Who is skilled enough to do what? Right? And I do like to believe by putting all of those like foundational items together, it helped us a lot to accelerate faster. Because I know in many cases, especially the explosion of LLMs, right? A couple of years ago, it's part of our lives now. I think we all forgot about that ChatGPT moment.
Yep.
But that explosion also created so much nervousness from the risks perspective, because if everyone is capable of building AI solutions, who's going to control that?
Yep.
Who's going to figure out how to build this responsibly, trustworthy way, and people actually know what they're doing with this tool, right? Um, it's such a strong and powerful tool that we give into our employees' hands. So all of these things helps, and obviously there's tools around it, right? To be able to do that, you have to um, um, enable the right tooling for the end users in a way, so they can actually so we can put this in production in a very nice way. And then there's also the risk management processes, the right uh, the higher level, more of a council, but the council doesn't do use case by use case approvals. In our case, it's a much more strategic level AI council that we have. So being able to put all of these pieces together, it takes a long time. It takes
Yep.
a really I guess a lot of strategic thinking. And and funny enough, I do run AI governance for CIBC. We It's a very different approach actually that we've been taking. Our governance and AI risk management and compliance and oversight is within the first line within our bank, and sits with me. And I find that's a very, very interesting balance to have, because I also have AI delivery. And I think that's also why it's working really well in our case, because everything that I do with the governance team, I can check. it very fast and test and experiment really fast with the delivery team. The moment delivery team is like yelling and screaming and saying this is not working, then we keep tuning the processes really fast. So it's almost that little startup environment that we have within our own team that we can uh, leverage it as almost like an enabler than a stopper, I would say.
I absolutely love it. And I think you said a couple of really interesting things there. So one, I didn't know you had both governance and delivery, and I think that's a unique model to your point. That's allowing you one to validate, well, one to establish the governance of how you're going to control it, how you're going to be responsible about it, and safe and truthful. And I like that you also have delivery. So to your point, you can very quickly go and validate, okay, indeed, everything that's being said on the risk framework and governance framework is not there, is there. Um, and I think the other thing that I learned from this is, so you started on this governed AI by design 4 years ago. And the essence I've got from this is this actually helped you go faster and scale. I think that's also very unique. So maybe just touch on that a little bit more on how you went about building that framework, and how it impacted how your target operating model was, and how you enabled all the stakeholders, because in large organizations there is this struggle of, you might have a corporate vision that, okay, we want to adopt AI. When it comes a level lower or a couple of levels lower, we have competing priorities sometimes. So how did you go about designing that model for success?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good question. So, look, one of the reasons I actually um, joined CIBC was the size of CIBC. And mainly thinking that there wouldn't be tens of me, right? So there could be a lot more strategic thinking and actions and guidance that I can put the company through, and that's what I love to do. And that is part of our strength, I find, that we are a smaller organization from the human capital perspective, and that gives us some advantages as well from that stakeholder management perspective, right? One, and also, so I do, maybe I'll just also say in my current role, so I do have, I mentioned AI delivery, AI governance. I have a small applied AI research team. And the most recent one is I have an AI PCM, people change management team.
Wow.
And that's my newest adventure, let's put it that way, because what do I know about PCM? I have learned a lot in the last 6 months, I can tell you. But that was one of the gaps that we have identified, I think, very early in the game, is that if we don't have this type of dedicated change management function within our team, that it's adoption is going to be hard in many different ways. Adoption is going to be hard, adoption to tools, right? And adoption of AI. That's one thing. But also adoption of governance and that stakeholder management and all of that is a much different perspective the moment you have the PCM expertise within the team, and the way that they would, even I love it when they sit down with my stakeholders in an interview or conversation, and they can even message me on the side, oh, this person is sitting this way, or the body language is telling me that you might want to lean into that one point that you made, right? So I'm like, all
Wow,
right, let's
that
actually,
is crazy.
so which is really good, right? Like I love it. So and being able to even personalize in a way the communications that we would send to a certain group of people or certain type of roles in asks that we have from them, and how do we even ask, how do we even get their buy-in, right? Because the stakeholder management is always, I find, and I this is something that I learned from my Microsoft days with my sales partners there, is what's in it for them, right? I know what's in it for me. I do know it, but why would they care about it? That's not their problem, right? So being able to figure out what's in it for them, and how is this thing going to enable them faster, better, and so on and so forth, is really, really important that we're able to do that, right? And how it's pretty much, and look, I think it's a little bit of the um team composition as well, right? So if you look at the AI governance team that we put together, they are all ex data scientists on the risk management side. So they have built AI solutions hands on before, but somehow they're either interested in the risk side or had some education separately or had that mindset. Like the kind of joke that I have for our lead for AI governance is previous to CIBC, he was a data scientist within my team. He grew up to be the governance lead, but previous to CIBC, he was in the Air Force as an engineer, and he was in the risk and audit department in the Air Force. So my
Wow.
joke is like, if we trusted this guy to put Canadian jets on the air, I think I can trust him to build a system for us for AI governance. That's the joke, but it's also the reality because we built a team who know AI, who built it, but they have the risk mindset. They've done this in their lives in different ways. They are engineering graduates. They have that like process thinking, right, which I find very, very important and key in a governance structure. Um, and all they want to do is it's they're more of an advisors than anything else at this point, right? Like the risk team, especially, because with the process that we have built, I can tell you, we've never stopped a project, because we always tell people what are some of the mitigation approaches that they can take. Okay, this is a medium risk project, but if you do this, then you can lower it to low, and then you're good to go, and so on and so forth, right? So we're much of an advisory organization, in my opinion, than a blocker, which when people start seeing that, they want to pull us into the conversations with our 13 different risk partners, because the most important thing and the most challenging thing with for many financial institutions, as far as I know, is AI is a transverse risk. And that's what our regulator OSFI says too. It's not a risk by itself. So we have to work with 13 different risk partners within our bank. And AI owners, solution owners actually love coming to us. And then we figure out the 13 different situations behind the curtains. So they don't have to go and deal with 13 different people and risk group and get the same question over and over and over and asked in different ways, right? So I find that approach also really works well. Then what happens is, yeah, I mean, we've done products in our lives before. Stickiness, right? How do you create
Yeah.
stickiness?
100%. Yeah.
Stickiness by making people happy and what they need, give them what they need, right? And that's a little bit of the approach that we're thinking. Sorry, it might be a little bit all over the place on how I got to your question, but I hope it was
No,
helpful.
I think you did. So again, what I took away from this is you basically designed an operating model where if I'm an application developer that's using AI or implementing AI into my app, I'm not being blocked, right? But I think the other unique thing that you have established is you are the face of the various risk bodies, risk owners, and you are taking that action on behalf of every use case that's coming in rather than teams having to play whack a mole. And I think hence the assertion that you are, I think to me, this is one of those few examples of how governance by design is actually leading to scaling and acceleration of AI. So I think that's pretty amazing. So diving deeper into just just the AI modeling and the research piece that you talked about that you do as well. And I know you briefly alluded to this Cambrian explosion of LLMs. So in your, especially with your background and the, the affinity that you might have as a researcher to go build your own, how do you determine, you know, are you going to build a model? Are you going to use something that already exists? Or are you going to just use some other techniques such as RAG or something else? So just walk us through what's your thinking around that.
Yeah. Look, I believe in leveraging every tool that is available to us. Everything, right? And I think my startup background probably balanced my research background from that perspective because they're
Okay.
pretty much the opposite. One is like just go break, fix, do it fast versus take your time and then
Yep.
figure out the most accurate answer that you need to get. Um, so look, in the end, we're running a business, right? And whatever is going to give me the results the fastest in a way that is, again, like governed by design, secure by design, all of those things, that is compliant to what we need to do within CIBC, we have to go do it, right? And I think it's a really good balance that we have to have. And I also really like the variety these days, right? Like we have so many options, like especially in the LLMs world, right? I mean, with the traditional AI, it was still the very much we have all kinds of options, but it's more of a library approach, and then you go build your own thing. And I don't think much has changed from that perspective. Well, I shouldn't say much has changed. I think 2 years ago, there was only one, two players, maybe that we didn't have that many options. But when you look at the market today and the options that we have, it's incredible. And being able to like tools and services that you can just like pick and choose. I don't have to I don't have to be tied to one vendor, one solution, one LLM. I think I think it's almost like beautiful for data scientists because I do remind our business partners and tech partners at times that my team are full of AI scientists. And keep in mind, even in the title, what is the second word? It's science. So there is still science to what we do, right? Yes, there are some use cases that are so much easy that you make an API call to an LLM provider and then you put an application front end in front of it and you're done. It's very low risk. Nobody really cares. You can do it with the default parameters and everything else. Sure, but we're not going to get the maximum value that way. So even when we are leveraging vendors or other LLM solutions, you're still doing a lot of tuning. The science. The science is getting smaller and squeezed in these cases, but there's still a bit of science to it. And is there value to building our own? Um, Keeping traditional AI because obviously that's moving as it was the more of the machine learning part. But if we're thinking from the LLM's perspective, um, or maybe let's call it deep neural nets overall, not just
Sure.
large language models,
Mhm.
not just language models. Let's put it that
Yep.
way, right? Um, but are we looking at building our own? Yeah, absolutely. But then again, why and what? Like, what is that unique proposition that we're gonna get, or the value that we're gonna get out of it? It's gonna be very much around, hey, do I need something unique that's gonna work on my own data? Sometimes, sometimes having something that was built on world's data might create the noise that I don't need, right?
Right. That's
In
a
a
good
way.
point. Yeah. Yeah.
So, is that one of those situations, or is this a core investment that I can actually spend a couple of years on it, spend millions of dollars on it, and I have enough confidence that it will actually get me something unique and potentially a competitive edge against my competitors? Then yes, absolutely. And do we have those cases too? Yes. That's why we do have an applied AI research team. But also, I don't have a huge team, right? So we're very much focused. Again, one of the things that I love about CIBC is because we're small, I really have to be very, very smart about where I put my money and time into. So prioritization is becomes very, very important. So yeah, it's being able to prioritize it.
So this is very much the startup culture. So I can see why you're enjoying it, right? Going
Yeah.
harking back to your startup days. So this seems like a really good blend of that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's dive. I know you mentioned PCM or people change
Mm,
management, and I think it's getting so critical now, especially with everything that's going on with agentic AI, or to your point, even just with the models, right? I mean, I looked at Hugging Face, there was 2.5 million models available,
yeah. Yeah.
right? So,
Options. It's almost like abundance of options right now.
it's abundance of options. Now, I think the other thing that happens is when you walk into a grocery aisle and there is an abundance of options, it overwhelms us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned people change management, and I think you're one of the few AI scientists, data scientists who has mentioned that. So let's dive into that a little bit. So both from the startup culture within your org, the governance of AI or governing AI for scaling, and then I think just the evolution and AI futures. So how are you approaching, and what are walk me through what some of the challenges you're seeing in terms of impact of AI to people, and how are you approaching change management there?
Yeah. Um, so this was and I it's interesting. I can't even recall how we come to that almost aha moment, but it was less than 12, no, it was about 12 months ago or so when we did say, hey, you know what? We actually need a PCM resource dedicated to for AI. And it was a very deliberate conversation between the HR partners as well, because typically, at least at CIBC, we do have an enterprise PCM function that's it with our HR partners. But it was very much like, you know what, this is very unique, and we really need these people, the PCM experts, to sit with very close to the AI hub within the banks. They really understand what we do, how we do it, what are our needs, and how do we communicate with our stakeholders. And then we will also rely a lot on their PCM expertise and knowledge on when we're trying to increase the adoption of these tools and so on and so forth, right? So there, I would say, two components to how we're looking at PCM at the moment. So one is tool adoption, right? And this very started as simple as Kai. So we have our CIBC AI tool. It's a chatbot that every employee can engage with. You can create your own recipes on it, and it's almost like a working buddy in a way, right? Um, and the point was like, well, how do we increase the adoption of this tool because it's very valuable, helpful, saving a lot of time, increasing productivity. So how do we go through that? And so that was the first focus with them. And the the interesting things are when these tools are built by technology, then it's almost like they're by default you're building it for technology people, or the way you're explaining is how you would use it and so on and so forth. But the variety of users that we would have within our bank is so different, right? Like we're going to have frontline, we have advisors, we will have back office operations folks, like executives, like so many different levels, technology partners and so on and so forth. So being able to, one, first understand what's working and what's not working, right? It's a little bit like a more than I guess after the customer discovery phase, but it's a lot more like being able to get that feedback, what's working, what's not working. And then once you figure out what's not working, then being able to create the right technique, let's put, for the right persona in a way, right? Because not every technique is going to be sticky for every user because their needs are different and they work with the tool in a different way and their expectations are different. So one mistake that I've seen many others do is a lot of people think PCM equals communications,
Mhm.
but it is absolutely much more than that. And if it's only one way communication that you're doing, that is not going to work out. you will just be sending things one way and you will never know where it's going. It's going to the void and you don't really know what's doing there. The second piece of the PCM that we found very, very helpful was from the target operating model and governance perspective. How are we doing? Right? Like, because when you sit in the center like we do, um, and when we're working with the stakeholders, to me, maybe everything is looking fine, right? Because sometimes we're just too nice to each other and we don't really tell our true feelings. But
Well,
being able to have this kind of support team and leadership within the team saying like, well, okay, maybe let's go out again. Let's go out and figure out what's working, what's not working. Even being able to ask the right questions the right way so we can get the proper answers back has been so much valuable. And then being able to tweak it, right? Realizing, okay, this didn't stick with this particular group. Why did it not stick? What do they need? Okay, their needs are different. Let's work with them and let's figure it out. So I think having a PCM like function very much works for us because we, my whole team is technical team except the PCM team. And it's a very small team. We're talking about two people here. Okay. Small and mighty, I call them. Um, but they almost teach us how to share the love in many ways in what we do as technical folks.
yeah. And I mean, the sense I'm getting is there is a lot of product thinking into this as well, right? So when you talk about user adoption and assessments of how the impact, this is very much product centric thinking around the capabilities that you're building. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I love to hear that actually. Thanks for bringing that up. I don't know if we did it purposefully, but probably yes. Now you say that, it makes sense. And the purposeful piece. I mean, I never thought from the PCM perspective, but since I joined CIBC, that's one of the goals that I had is how do we get into. I even had this umbrella and 2 years ago called projects to products, P2P. We called it within my team, saying that how do we stop churning use cases constantly and then figure out some patterns and then say, okay, this is actually a product, and then it will serve to multiple stakeholders. So there is definitely that part, but interesting you caught that from the PCM perspective. I don't think I even connected it.
Well, more to dig on that then. Um, okay, let's talk about the teams that you have. So you have four different teams. You know, the governance and delivery, the applied AI research, the small and mighty PCM team. So how do you build and retain the top AI talent in such a competitive industry? And sometimes we tend to forget that Canada is, disrespect, pretty small market, right? So we are all competing for a pretty small resource pool. So how are you attracting, retaining, and keeping these all of these people interested and motivated to work?
Yes. I'll tell you what comes easy to us, and we're very conscious about it. We never get comfortable, is retaining. And I'll tell you more about that. But attracting has been tough. And the reason for that being tough is um, I honestly think there's a lot of noise in the market. Because right now, anyone can declare themselves to be an AI person, right? Being able to weed through that, um, I guess, flood of resumes. For one job application, I think the most, I was really shocked. I think we got close to 4,000 resume applications in
Wow.
2 weeks, right? And do you really think they're all valid and qualified and skilled? No, absolutely not, right? So, frankly, my bigger challenge is attracting the talent and being able to find the good talent. And and our trick is very much like we try to get them when they're early in the career, and then they fell in love with our culture, let's put it that way. So that's my how to retain a good team approach is I absolutely believe people work for and with people. Um, and I am one of those people, right? Like because to me, I have a family, I have two little kids in my family, and I spend more time at work than I spend time with my kids. So it is, it better be fun, right? I better enjoy what I do because if I don't, then why am I doing it, right? So I think partly because I'm in that mindset, work is not a 9 to 5 in and out kind of job for me. Work is just has to be part of what I do and how I feel and so on and so forth. So the moment we actually, I guess, spread that energy and thinking and so on and so forth, then retaining is, I find, a lot more easier. And we have been very, very successful, knock on wood. We have been very, very successful retaining our talents. But one of the tricks that we do is get them early, sometimes right out of school, whether it's a grad degree and working with universities, partnering, getting into partnerships with them and get going through some of their programs so we can actually find the best talent before even they get out. Co-op programs, right? Like I love the co-op programs because if we love what we have and we typically do 8 months of co-ops and they've already learned what we do and during those 8 months, then hey, why don't you come join us when you graduate, right? So those are type of the tricks that we're trying to figure out to go through that very noisy and crowded market right now. And the opportunities, and I think it's been working especially the last 3 years, is because AI is not just building machine learning models anymore, right? There is a big variety of it. There is, like, I do believe AI is becoming or merging very much with software engineering. So the mindset needs to change or shift, or even the type of people that we're hiring. So being able to move even around teams, like as I said, half of my AI governance team have been on the delivery side before. And they're just like, well, hey, look, this looks interesting and I'm gonna gain new skills, right? And being able to create that kind of fluid environment that they can actually move from one role to another one, um, grow, and create opportunities. Um, I I I think retaining hasn't been too bad.
Okay. So spot them early, lure them in with culture, interesting projects, right? I mean, really, when it comes to like, I like, as you said, it really boils down to people working with people. I'm a big believer that we can hire the best researchers, the best data scientists, but if the culture is not suitable, we'll end up losing them. So I want to end on futures and looking forward, and you sort of alluded to that in your previous answer about how AI is now evolving more towards software engineering. One can interpret that, hey, this is part of what where the agents are going, amongst other things, the tool calling, function calling capabilities that are being built into the AI models as well. So, if you peer into your crystal ball, where are we actually with AI capabilities in your estimation versus the hype cycle? And how are you preparing your org, especially with with or without the PCM team, on when this agentic wave truly hits? Because I feel like the noise, as you called it, with the plurality, optionality of the models, the governance guardrails, I think you have very good arms around that. But this next wave, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on how much of that is real. Are we in the middle of it? Is the worst or the best yet to come? Where do you see this going?
So look, I am I am not the optimist type when it comes to is this is the best to come. Look, from the technology perspective, I am mesmerized with where we are today. I'll be frank with that. And I love it as the scientist, right?
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I do have many philosophical and social challenges personally with where we are going as humanity, leveraging these tools. That's my doomsday personality. We'll put that aside. But look, where we're gonna go, I think. Look, from AI perspective, it's not a hype cycle at all. It is really a tool in the tool um, kit right now, in my opinion. It's no different than any toolkit that we have with our technology partners, say within CIBC, and AI is just becoming one of those tools in the toolkit. Agentic AI is uh, uh, there. It's definitely hype, in my opinion. We're still in the hype phase, if you ask me, um, because we all talk about it and how much value are we truly generating out of it yet is to be seen soon. It's not going to be 10 years. It's not going to be 5 years. Most likely in the next couple of years. We'll probably pass over that hype phase. So everything is in a very accelerated timeline, I would say, from those perspectives. And what's what are our roles gonna look like? I don't know, Manav. Sometimes I think 2 years ago I had to pause and even ask myself, am I going to be irrelevant in the next 5 years? Like, what do I need to do to be relevant? And it's such an interesting feeling for AI folks who've done this their whole lives because we we've never had to ask that question, right? It was always so clear to us what we were doing, where we were going, how we were going to do this. So it's very interesting actually to be able to pause and say that. And the moment I say it to myself, then the next thing coming to my mind, oh wait, then what does it mean for my team, right? How do I prepare them for this change and what that change is even going to look like? Because the biggest challenge I think we're all having right now, the speed of this change coming, and by the time that you think you're ready, I feel like everything's going to change again.
Again. Yep.
So it's a little bit of that challenge. So I would like to think that the more perseverant type of folks are going to figure it out and what that means. In my opinion, it's very much going to be amalgamation of software engineering and AI scientist personas. Where do you really originate to get there is really going to change or depend on what type of solutions that you're building. Because there are still solutions that, at least within bank, I know we do this, and I really hope many large enterprises think through that, but accuracy is still so important. Like in the LLMs, where consistency, confidence, and all of those metrics that we need to think through before we put anything in production. And you can only think through those metrics if you have this science background. If you're a software engineer and you've never seen it in your life before, you're not going to think through it. I mean, it's not like you don't know what you're doing, but you kind of don't, right? So, how those two roles kind of combined together, I think it's going to be interesting, and where they're going to be leveraged for and what purposes. I think there's still going to be a need for more of the scientist knowledge. Are we going to need as many of us in near future? Probably not. I think we're going to turn more into engineers and less scientists, but who knows? Who
Yep.
knows?
I think that's the
We'll have
future of it.
another conversation in 2 years from now and see where we end up.
See, that's what I'm worried about. Like 2 years from now, the conversation is going to be so radically different about how wrong we were.
Yeah,
You
possible.
know? Like
Very possible.
some days it feels with all these new bots and agentic systems and Cloud bot and Volt bot, the change of or the pace of change is so rapid, it is frightening. Okay, Osge, last question for you. For people that are starting out, engineers fresh, either considering engineering, comp sci, or how you and I started our careers trying to get our engineering degrees, what would be your advice to them?
Oh, tough. In a way, I'm kind of glad that my kids are not that old, because these days it's a tough situation. Look, I'm a little bit old school from that perspective, right? I still believe in the foundational knowledge of whatever you want to do. And if AI is intriguing to someone, then I still believe in the foundational knowledge of that, right? Like whether all you do is tool calling and putting things together and more of that engineering mindset. Engineering and science, I still think I would like to believe that they're going to be relevant, but how they will do their jobs getting out of these degrees probably are going to look way more different what it looked like for us. Even like 5 to 10 years ago, let's say, don't go that far for you and I, but even 5 to 10 years ago, how would that look like? What that job and work environment would look like versus now is going to look different. But I really believe in the foundational knowledge. If you do something, you better know. Like it would like the silly example that I always have that when I was doing computer engineering, I had to take an assembly course, and that gives you so much appreciation for every piece of line of code that you write and what that is in that machine, right? Do I ever need it? No. I mean, it's not like I use it, but it's just that appreciation and understanding. And if I ever need it, I could kind of approach. I still believe in that.
Yeah, no, I think I'm on the same side as you. I think the whole essence of engineering and science degrees, they teach us critical thinking, problem decomposition, debugging. I think those are foundational skills that I think are every graduate, every human is going to require in this new world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Ozge, I want to thank you sincerely for being so generous with your time and sharing everything that you did. I thought it was fascinating, just the operating model, how you put together. I really love that how you're bringing the product thinking around change management. And I don't think that I would have ever envisioned having heard you say it, it makes so much sense. But how CIBC being from the outside such a large organization, but still operating as a in that startup mentality, I think that's fascinating. So I thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the day. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Manav. As I said, always a pleasure having a chat with you.
Thank you so much.
All
Okay.
right.